It's a great privilege in my job each year to be able to deliver a few remarks each year on this point, and if I'm successful, to encourage you to at least think a little bit about your own personal relationship to honesty and integrity. This year I want to center my comments on the notion of a test. When you hear the word, it conjures up images of sitting hunched over a set of math problems or history identifications, you scribbling what you take to be the best answers in hopes of gaining the highest possible mark. Some tests, though, aren't on a numerical scale like your math or history tests. On these other, more profound sorts of tests, you can't score higher or lower. You simply pass or fail. When referring to these kinds of tests, we often use the ominous-sounding phrase, put to the test. Perhaps the most influential historical example of such a test is found in the Old Testament. In the book of Genesis, God put Abraham to the test by commanding him to kill his beloved son Isaac. Maybe some of you know this story. Abraham dutifully traveled with Isaac to the sacrificial spot and lifted the knife. At the last minute, an angel stopped Abraham's hand, and Isaac was saved. Abraham, from God's perspective at least, had passed the test. There's a lot to digest in that story, to be sure. But part of the point is that the test for Abraham was really, really hard. There was a conflict, an unimaginably excruciating internal conflict that Abraham was forced to face and confront about himself. He then had to make a choice and act. Abraham was put to the test. And in a much less dramatic fashion, I want to put you to the test this morning by having you engage in a little thought experiment. Imagine that you're walking some distance behind a complete stranger. You notice something coming out of the person's back pocket. As you near it, you notice that it's a $50 bill. What would you do? Undoubtedly, some of you, if you're honest with yourselves, will scoop up the 50 and count yourself lucky. Find your keepers, those are sweepers. Others, though, would make a special effort to catch up to the stranger and hand back the 50. If you choose to pocket the money, why? Why would you do that? Presumably because you believe it's in your own personal best interest to do so. You're 50 bucks richer, and the other person really isn't that bad off. If it makes you feel better, the stranger's Bill Gates. If you chose to make a special effort to return the money to the stranger, why? Why would you do that? It's not in your best interest to do so. So why did you do it? Why be honest in that circumstance? The plain answer is simple. Because it's the right thing to do. It's the only reason to do it. Luckily, many of our choices in life are pretty easy precisely because our own self-interest and the principles of honesty align. What's in my self-interest is often, very often, what being honest requires. That's what makes it easy to be honest in those cases. It's easy to tell the truth after you've been caught red-handed. It's easy to keep your eyes from straying to another student's test when a teacher is standing directly over you. It's easy not to carve in desks and scribble on tables when the dean of students is sitting at your desk or table. But those moments are not the real tests of your commitment to honesty. You're put to the tests that matter in those moments when you know you can get away with it. The real test is in those moments when a lie will actually buy you more time to get your assignment done. The real test is in those moments when your teacher leaves the room and you can cheat with no chance of getting caught. The real test is in those moments when you are alone at the Harkness table at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night, sharp pencil, scribbling device, poised in hand. The test is in those moments when doing the right thing is really, really hard. Would you pass the test? Will you, in those moments, abide by the honor code and avoid lying, cheating, stealing, vandalizing? The philosopher Paul Taylor suggests that we all have to make what amounts to the ultimate choice about how we want to define ourselves. It's an ultimate choice in part because it establishes our personal identity, defines our very character. The choice for us boils down to this. Do I want to be supremely moral or supremely self-interested? When my self-interest diverges from honesty, like it does when a stranger drops the 50, what ultimately drives me to action in those moments? Doing what's honest or doing what serves my personal interests? We find out things about ourselves when we're tested and about our community especially in those moments when we're really tested. I'm proud to stand before you and say that our community is one constituted by members of this community that have made the ultimate choice to live honestly, even when it's really hard. We get tested every single day. Time after time after time, there's little tests, sometimes big tests. And we often pass those tests. Honesty forms in those important ways the bedrock of our community, and the honor code is our symbol of that commitment, our pledge to ourselves and to each other, that we desire to pass those tests when they come upon us. That's not to say, of course, that we always do. None of us is morally perfect, but we do desire to pass those tests. That's why we're here. And we strive to help others in our community do the same. That's what makes our community strong. This morning, then, I wanted to just challenge you to think about all the tests that you will take this year, big and small. Try to imagine, if you will, I'm about to head off to class because I just heard the bell. Try to imagine, if you will, that you are taking one in your next class, or right now. It's on material that for some reason, whatever the class is that you have next, it's on material that for some reason you don't quite understand, for which you are not quite prepared. Who knows why? Your neighbor has all the answers. Your instructor leaves the room. In this circumstance, you are inevitably going to pass one test and fail another. Ultimately, it's going to be your choice.